Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Yay! Hello. Welcome. I'm glad to see these faces. These are beautiful faces looking at me. Yay. All right. So this time I guess we're going to go around the room and kind of let everybody go ahead and introduce themselves, tell a little bit about what you do, why you're here, and who you're looking to support. And then that way we can kind of get started. And then I will go ahead and begin to give you the stats and the reasons why we're all here today. So I'm going to do, let's see if I can do this right. It's always one of those strange things I have to say. All right, so Emily, I'm going to put you up first. Go ahead, Emily, share with us who you are and what you do, my friend.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Emily Beeson, owner of Blue Heron Business Partners. I'm also a former middle school teacher and a mom of two. I have a kiddo in elementary school and one in preschool. In the business that I do, I show business owners how to use their passion to easily attract their best clients so that they have more time to innovate and do more of what they love. I work with coaches and creative consultants. And I just want people to love what they do and to be able to share their passion. And a lot of the time, those really passionate people have a really hard time selling themselves as a product. So we work on mindset, we work on all the things because I want people to actually enjoy the work that they're doing.
I like that. And I'm so glad you're here because, first of all, you are a rock star. At the end of the day, there are things that you do and say with anybody you work with that actually help to improve how they feel about themselves and their business, and are able to stand in their power and be able to move through that. And I love that. I think that you're a shining example for your girls. So because they are going to be able to see that they too do not have to shrink themselves in order to be who they want to be in life. And I think that's amazing. So thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, Miss Gail, you're up next. Oh, and please let folks know about this book, my friend.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tabitha. Thank you so much for inviting me. So I have two things to share. One, I am a midlife reinvention coach. When I retired, I had a career of 38 years as an elementary school teacher. I taught every grade, preschool through fifth, a majority in fifth. And when I was teaching, I would get a lot of feedback from everybody, teachers, children, parents, that I shared, that I had so much positivity for children, that I always saw the best in children and helped them to see it. That inspired me to write my book called The Affirming Way of Life. See the good, speak the good, spread the good. And, the intent of my book, it comes from, all the experience I had with teaching that, so many of us were not brought up to recognize the impact of our words. And my book is intended to help parents and really anyone in a relationship. But I do have specific focuses on parenting, to look with eyes to see the best in their children and then to tell them, because our words build the foundation of how our children see themselves. My other piece is, in recreating my life after teaching, I have become a life coach because I loved helping children grow. And so now I've moved on to helping adults. And my niche is helping women from 40 to 70 plus.
Oh.
A little similar to Emily. I'm here to help them recreate a life that they love from the inside out.
That is beautiful. Nice. You're always so positive. I think I keep running into people with that positivity. So I'm glad. So you have said, I'm a teacher, but I'm going to continue teaching. Therefore, keep on moving. So that is amazing. I love that. Thank you very much. All right, Miss Kim, you're up next.
All right. Man, I'm Tabitha. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I love the fact that you ladies are teachers. I always wanted to be a teacher, but look, I like money a lot more. So I went into finances. Okay. But I always wanted to do the education, right? So I became a financial advisor, as well as a 401k administrator. And my focus is to help those small and medium businesses learn about money, and inevitably also take that education to all of the employees to know what you're doing, why you're doing, how you're doing it, right? We know that the middle class, 80% of America is middle class, and we are either failing, struggling, or surviving, or whatever other adjective you want to put with money, but we don't know. We don't know what we're doing. They don't know how to manage it. And so my goal is to be able to touch the middle class and show them how to get where they want to go, retire with dignity, have all of their goals and dreams, and live rich. So that's my goal. Love being able to working with women. It's a huge passion of mine. I won't deny a guy to help, right? But women are kind of my favorite. But, that's in my career, right? And so outside of that, I'm married. We've got 3 kids. One stepdaughter who's 23, and my 2 littles are 10 and 12. My biggest challenge, I think, as a parent is one, we're an interracial couple. And so I've learned a lot of all the different demographics. My husband's Afro-Latino, an immigrant when he was a teenager. And so that brings just a whole bunch of information that I did not grow up with. But my children are also gifted. And so as I'm a huge advocate for them to make sure that they're constantly challenged on one side of the classroom, right? But that also, I think, leans into the other piece of the classroom, because there's the same kind of advocacy that needs to be had, even when your kid's right down the middle, right? Or when your kid is on the lower end of the classroom. There's this advocacy in the classroom. And so I'm a huge advocate for just being able to show up, talk to the teacher and go, okay, so my kid knows this. So what are you going to do next? Right? Talking to the principal, how are you separating your classroom, your school from other schools? Like, I want to know those kind of things and what they're working on, what they're focused on, where the numbers and the proof behind it. And so I ask a lot of questions. I teach all of my clients, ask questions when it comes to their money. I pretty much ask questions all the time in every aspect of my world. And so I think it's so important. But I'm excited here, because I know money is a big stress. It's a big deal. And we use money when we turn on the light. We use money when we go to the grocery store, just driving there, right? Using gas. And so I think it's wildly important to be able to teach kids, even at 10, 11, 12, 15 years old, about money, how to manage the $10 you have. Otherwise, you're not going to get 10 grand until you can manage the $10, right? So that's where I'm at, and really what I come to bring. And I'm excited to be able to learn from you ladies who are experts in your field. So I'm really looking forward to the event.
This is amazing. I like you. I love you, Kim, actually. I'm gonna move up there pretty soon. But I just love the fact that you are very passionate about this, and that you are walking the walk and talking that talk. So that is amazing. It's one of the reasons why you're here. All right. So then there's me. Yay, me. My name is Tabitha Barron, and I am the founder of Keeping Your Kids Safe. I have created a platform that allows each child to effectively communicate their way home. Why is that important? It is a way to communicate with all parties involved in a child's day. So when a parent gets a text message that their child is attempting to go home a different direction other than what they have assigned, it is important for them to know that at the time in which it's happening, so they can help and assist that child to go home the way they were assigned. We work to give the administrators peace of mind by knowing that they accurately send children home the correct way. We give children an opportunity to be seen, to be heard, and to feel safe during their arrival and dismissal for school. And then for the parents, we're providing them absolute peace of mind, knowing that their child, heads up, they're on their way. And then that way they're able to wait, be prepared for them, or either time them. If it takes them 15 minutes to get there and they're 20 minutes and it's 20 minutes, I guarantee you're on your way towards them. And that's the important part of why I believe that we are keeping your kids safe. So now we get down to the nitty gritty. I'm going to go ahead and, okay, this is not working for me. I don't know why I decided not to do that. Oh, Lord, here we go again. This thing is all interesting. There it goes. All right, it was just being slow. So I'd like to thank everybody for showing up. We got Phil. How you doing, friend? Susanna, Edward, Kristen. Hi, everybody. Janice, thank you very much for spending your time with us. Okay, so first and foremost, I always like to thank everybody for showing up. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all of the administrators out there doing the work that they're doing. It is not an easy task, but it is something that's necessary, and that's the choice that you had, and I'm glad that you're doing it. So I want to say that I also want to thank the village, because at the end of the day, the community is what helps us keep our students in line and on that straight and narrow. Before we can create what we know is needed, we first have to understand what we're solving for. Algebra always tells you, if you're going to solve for X, you need to understand what you're solving for. And this is that. So what I will tell you is that after our last conversation, my numbers have gone up. 4 million teachers in the United States that cover over 90,000 schools. 55% of them in 2023 say that they are ready to quit. They are going to leave. 55%. That is letting you know that something is wrong and something needs to be addressed. The other thing is that there are 50 million children that go to school every single school year. 42 million of them actually go to sleep hungry every single night. Think about that. Let that sink in, because that's a problem that can be solved, especially when we find that the United States waste is 40%, and we throw away 120 billion pounds of food a year. But you have all these people who go home to empty refrigerators, and children who only eat when they go to school. Let's see, 37% can't read on grade level. Let me put that in perspective. 13 million children out of 50 million children cannot read on grade level. That's a problem that can be solved. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, because that one was a question that has come up in the back room, and we want to be able to expand upon that. Think about that. 49.4 million children in the fall of 2020 and fall of 2021 were enrolled, but they are projecting that by 2031, we will decrease the number of children enrolled in the school to 46.9 million children. What's happening that we're losing the numbers? Is it because the new generation has decided not to have a lot of children or many children, or have they chosen a different path to educate their children because they do not feel as the desired outcome is coming out of these schools? So that's something we really need to think about. One of the other things I posted probably last week, that representation matters, because with one Black teacher by the third grade, you have a 7% graduation rate increase in high school graduation rates, and 13% to enroll in a college when you have a Black teacher. When you have two, it goes up to 32%. So that representation is very necessary. And it's not just about Black students. I just want to be clear. The report that I read actually shows that Black teachers being incorporated into classrooms actually improve that absenteeism that is there, and it improves their math and their reading skills. So the fact that there is not as many Black leaders in there is amazing. But if you put more in, you have less likely to have a lot of absenteeism that continues to plague the education system. Other thing I want to bring out is the fact that 180 school days. Does anybody know how many hours that is away from your children?
A lot.
It is. It's 1,260 hours per year.
Almost half a year, really.
In the school, right? That's why I consider parent 1 to be home, parent 2 to be school, and your bonus parent is the community. Parent 1, if we cannot figure out how to co-parent with the schools, our children are losing more than we will ever think that they're going to lose. And I think that's sad. So for adults at 40 hours a week, 52 weeks in a year, you're at 2,080 80 hours at an employer per year. If we add in travel time, we'll put about 520 more hours. Now you're away from your children 2,600 hours. You have to, we all as parents have to figure out how to co-parent with their educational institutions, because they're spending sometimes more time with your child than you are spending with your child. So that means all of your value systems and all the things that you pour into your child is literally being picked away and replaced with things that they find valuable. Okay. And that's the problem. So the reason why I created Save Our Kids is the fact is that I had a lot of I was spending a lot of time working to get my product into the schools to help support. If I can help the student show up to school, you can teach them while they're in school. But if I can't help the child get to school, you can't teach anybody. Okay. So that's one of the reasons why I was bringing this forward. And I learned in my travels that there were so many more people working to help the schools, but were being shut out from the schools. So it's time to kind of rally together and figure out how we can support one another and show, here's our problem, here's a solution. Now, what are you going to do with the solution? And then make sure that everybody involved, parent one, home, parent two, school, community, all three of us together are going to be able to make a significant impact as long as we work together to do this. And this is what I'm aiming for. So, Kim, go ahead and ask your question, because let me go ahead and get into that. We're going to get down to the nitty gritty.
Well, it was about your, your post, right, that you had said where, you're looking at fourth grade reading level to find out and kind of running those numbers. So, okay, let's say it's that 37% of fourth graders are not at fourth grade reading level. And I'd be curious to see what level are they at? Are they just into third grade? Or are they second grade? Or are they just really struggling to where like they just stopped reading because of the frustration, because that age is funny, right? My daughter's in fifth grade. And so that age is funny. But with those numbers you take that number of a fourth grader this year, they're going to graduate in about 10 years from now, 8 years. So what does that look like 8 years from now as far as incarceration, right? Like it's so important to teach the kids while they're curious, walk them through while they're willing to, you're not fighting, you're not combating, you're having those conversations. Gail being an ex-fifth grade teacher, right? And Emily being in middle school, like you guys, oh my gosh, you guys have seen this so firsthand. But as a parent coming in, I can't fathom that if our kids can't read, that we can calculate what that would look like in 10, 15, 20 years from now. But my question, right, and this is where Tabitha knows me and knows my heart and where it comes from, is that a race question? Is that a race statistic? Because we all know the numbers, we can't deny the numbers. You look at the jail and you can know that so much of the population is one demographic over most other demographics. But how does that relate to an elementary school where it's maybe much more diversified in the elementary schools? And so Tabitha, I'd love for you to expand on that, what that looks like, because I'm sure you looked into it, right? Because you think like the same way I do at a lot of things like this. So
what you're talking about, I think that's why I was like, let me go ahead and let you ask the question, because you're not the only person that's going to have that question. I think we've had different other conversations, and it actually lands in the place where, is it race related? This has to do with race. In my opinion, that number is not race related. It is the fact that I believe Black and brown children are caught in that net. And that is what happens. So are there more Black and brown people in jail? Yes. The numbers actually show you that is what's happening. The sad part about it is that you're capturing that information in elementary school. So that means that what is happening in elementary school that's allowing you to notice. So we all, as an engineer, as data scientists is what we're kind of, refer to, right? Is that we take a look at the trend and what's happening. And if we start to watch the trajectory of what happens when a child can't read at fourth grade, and maybe they're only a year behind, but by the time they get to sixth grade, they're 2 years behind, right? So they're watching that trajectory of that child. And by the certain time that child does not make it, does not catch up with his reading, now they're more likely to be incarcerated by the age of 24. That is going to be, and it's actually, we perpetuate that bad behavior. And this is one of the reasons this is one of the ways we do it. Because, and I asked another principal about this, and they were like, well, the child doesn't always have what is necessary in order to do the job, right? In order to, so maybe they don't have they didn't eat last night, so they're tired. Maybe they don't have their own devices, so you give them a pass. It's okay, you can lay your head down today. It's okay, you can have a couple extra days for your homework. And you give allowances to the Black and brown children because they do not have access to what is necessary for them to be educated. That continues to help support and contribute to their deficit, because it's not helping them to rise to the occasion or rise to the goal. It's actually giving them a reason and an excuse not to perform. That is perpetuating this bad behavior and the lack of not being able to read. It's dyslexia. It's the fact that that somebody's not paying enough attention to them. Maybe they don't have enough time to read at home. Maybe they don't understand what's happening and they're too afraid to have those conversations. So, Ms. Gail, you spent almost 38 years in education. Please share with us what you have found, because you've done from pre-K all the way up to 8th grade. So you were able to see what that looks like. So please share your insight with us.
Listening to you, what it makes me think about, we're talking about the kids who are in the classroom and below grade level, particularly reading we're talking about. One of the things, I was not happy towards the end of my career. I retired in 2015. There was so much emphasis on prepping kids for the standardized test. I live in the state of New Jersey, and like the core standards, the teachers were tested against that. But here's the interesting, this is a surprising thing to come out of my mouth, because in my state, our school, we had a lot of Black and brown children in our school who were testing below grade level in reading. And so our school was failing on that measure for those students. And so it forced my principal. We had such an emphasis on programs for, there's always basic skills. I'm assuming in every state you have basic skills. But we had after school programs for the children, so while I hated, it's like, for me, the core standards, the child there, the fun of learning, that was all taken out of school. Right. But I did see, I saw more of an emphasis. I think, in my opinion, creating programs, after school, community, like when you talked about, it's the 3-prong educators for our children. I loved how you said that. And more community programs, like we do need safety nets, consciousness raising that they're going to get it. I don't know if I have never seen this work really well, but it would seem also parent education, that was another thing our school district did. I can't remember what it was called, but it was an evening program over a course of maybe 8 or 12 weeks that parents, again, probably more of the really parents who were the not as educated parents that didn't have that in their background, they would come in, they'd have a dinner, and then they'd have programs. And so I think embracing the parents to be part of the education system and feel like, it's kind of like my book and my belief is that we need to show the children their own value, like speak to them away, but we need to do that with the parents too. We want to let the parents of all those children know that they are valued members of our community and their children's education.
I agree 100%. I think that that's one of what I posted today. If anybody want to go see the post, I actually put a video on there. Listen to the video. The video actually tells you what is happening. They say 4th grade reading level. That is where they're taking the markers. First of all, that's disgusting that you would use a 4th grade reading level to project how much jail space you need. That is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Parents, if you don't have the time and you do not have the skill set to actually teach your child math, find somebody in the community that can do that. If you don't have enough time and you don't read very well either, and you do not want to see that your child's failing, find someone in the community to do that. I do not understand how we can, as parents, want the best for our children, and then we don't go out and help them identify how to do that. Yeah. This is a predator type of a thing or a hunting thing. When the store don't have your bread, don't you keep on looking for it? So why are we pausing when it comes to our children's education? And this reading level is significant because I know people who signed their lives away and is in jail for the rest of their life because guess why? They couldn't read. And they couldn't read what they were signing, and they signed away their lives. And now their life is incarceration for the remainder of it. So Emily, from a teacher standpoint, what would your thoughts and ideas be around this?
Yeah, there's a couple things that have kind of come up since this conversation started. And one of them was when I was student teaching, I had some high school kids, and there was one kid who was a senior who could not read any assignment. He couldn't read at all. And I think it was dyslexia, but I wasn't totally sure because nobody was talking about it. They were just passing him through grade to grade to grade. And so we did some oral, I asked him the questions from the assignments, and he was able to answer every single one. He knew it. He just couldn't articulate it in a way that they were grading on. And so my class, I taught family and consumer science. So I had kids of all different backgrounds, of every ability level, and they were coming into my class at all times of the year because they couldn't be handled in art. They couldn't be handled in music. And so they were thrown into my class, and I got a chance to really connect with these kids in a way that other teachers weren't because they were just being passed around like, oh, this is a problem kid. No, the kid wasn't being challenged. And so you saw his behavior as challenging when really he was just looking for somebody to notice that he was bored and needed another way to be challenged. And I taught middle school. The one kid that I'm thinking of right now, all of his teachers were saying he's not going to amount to anything. He's not going to do anything. He's not going to do anything. And I'm like, you know what? No, that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is he's bored and he needs somebody to pay attention to that. And it wasn't until his junior year when I wasn't teaching anymore, I got an email from him and he said, you always told me you were going to get me to love learning. And I never believed you. And now I'm doing all these things. I found what I love. I'm really passionate about it. And it's taking that interest in these kids and trying to figure out how can I support you? What do you need from me? How can I meet you where you are to help you get to the next level, rather than, okay, you just have to follow the rules and do the things. And I told some of my kids, I'm like, you're going to have to jump through some of these hoops. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. But if you jump through the hoops and you ask for the support that you need to jump through the hoops, you're going to be in a much better spot than if you're to just give up and say, this is stupid, I don't want to do it. So yeah, it's hard. As a former teacher, I held so much space for those kids, and it was hard for me to imagine trying to hold that space for my own children when I was holding so much space at school. And I was the safe person for most of the kids that came through my room. And they saw me a lot more than they saw their own parents. So
yep,
it is
the point.
Yeah. And I think too, now a lot of parents are working more than one job. So they're trying to keep food on the table and a roof over their head and wanting to spend time with their kids, but also not having the resources in order to do that. So creating these opportunities in school, like you said, with after school programs and things like that, to make sure that the kids are supported if they don't have a parent at home who's trying to work and make ends meet, is really important.
I just want to add to what you just said, Emily. what I heard you say with this student is that and with all your students, you saw them. You looked at them and you saw them as people. You
Mhm.
treated them as someone. You saw good things in them and you treated them that way. And, I think that our children, like, that should be fundamental. Well, before I was talking about, we're talking about how do we help them read so that we can raise their level of their functioning in the world and not be incarcerated.
Mhm.
But, it's just so fundamental as parents and as teachers to look with eyes to see who is this child, to value, because once they're seen, then, like you said, Emily, then they're motivated to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing because I think that's one of the reasons why. So even with my product, I give this is a way for children to be seen and heard.
Mhm.
This is why. My niece said, "This is not my bus. I don't belong here. I
Mhm.
don't care. Get on this bus anyway." So now you've stripped away her ability to be seen, to
Yeah.
be heard. Everybody wants to be seen and heard. No one always wants to be in the limelight. Let's be very clear. It's not, look at me all the time. I'm doing this. It is, at least acknowledge my existence. At least acknowledge that I'm here. At least acknowledge that I have a voice. I'll never forget the example that I was given by an educator. Said that she was doing tutoring services, and a 17-year-old walked into, a parent brought her 17-year-old young man into her tutoring office and said, "Please help him because he can't read." She gives him a general test to take, entrance, to figure out where he was in a process. He filled out nothing. He could not read anything. How did he make it from elementary school, and I don't know what grade, we'll just say second grade, all the way up till 17 years old? That's at least 11th or 12th grade, not being able to read. And who did not pick up on that? That's the point. So now you've destined him into a system that is not going to be forgiving. And he is destined to go into incarceration or into a life of crime. Because if you can't read the application, you can't complete it. If you can't read the contract, you can't confirm or deny that you're agreeing into any of that. There's so many things. The only thing you need to do is sign your name. Nowadays, they don't even teach cursive.
It's back.
It kills me. It's back. I'm glad to hear it. When I was in my career, they told us we couldn't teach it anymore. And I thought, oh my God. I mean, it's a basic.
Yep, it was a basic. I had somebody look at a card that I gave them and says, "Whisper, I can't read this." I was like, "What the heck?" So you literally destined everybody into being in a place where they're not going to be able to survive. So did schools turn into manufacturing for soldiers of non-thinkers? Is that what's happening?
Well, and Tabitha, to touch on your point, let's say this 17-year-old kid, for example, let's say he doesn't make poor choices, he doesn't get incarcerated. Is he driving at 16 years old? Probably not, because he can't take the test. He can probably drive a car, but he can't take the test and he can't read the road signs. He can't go from A to B. So what is he going to rely on, like the GPS talking to him? Like it's huge inhibitions that it sets him up for. So if he fills out a job application, how does he know what box he's checking? Or like of course, my brain goes to, how does he even know what to fill out for his employee benefits? Or when he's taking care of his bills and his finances. And we've all had bills where there's something wrong with the bill, where there's an issue. And you're like, what is this word, this fee, this cost, whatever it is, ask. And you're asking questions, but I'm like, I'm not paying that extra $200. He is in a situation where he doesn't know, can't fix that, can't solve his own problems.
Yep.
It's so much grander. It's stripping this. It's like being able to take almost, and this may not seem like it is, but my initial thought is it's almost like giving them a disability to run with.
Exactly. So I'm glad you said this, because here's my thing. And no, my finger is up now, but it's not always up. That's the child picture behind me. It's always a funny comment in networking meetings when they were like, Tabitha, your hand's up. No, it's not really. But the one thing I will say with that is that not only that, so are we bringing everything back down to where slaves weren't allowed to read? Because if they read, they would have more information and be able to help themselves. Because last week we talked about banning of books and things like that, right? That is a problem, because in Florida they have, Kristen, I said your name, Kristen, 1,400 books in Florida have been banned. And some of these books don't make sense, right? In Texas, it's over 600 has been banned. Now, remember back in slavery when they talked about it and they said that Black people were not allowed to read. They were actually beaten and said that they were not allowed to read. Don't teach your children how to read. And any child that learned how to read, or any person that was caught reading, they did harm to. Is that the trajectory we're on our way to? Because ultimately at 37%, which only 60% are able to read, that means that, okay, they will then go into servitude to a job that they will not be able to use their creative mind and their independent thinking, because the employer just wants them to do. I want you to teach to this curriculum, no questions asked, and I don't want to be bothered with anything you have to say. Or I want you to build this code. I want you to build it exactly like this. No extra, anything. Do as I say, otherwise you won't have a job. Because I feel like that's kind of where we're kind of going with all of this, because if you think that if anybody thinks that 37% children not being able to read on grade level is acceptable, I need you to talk to me. I need you to get on my calendar. I need to have a conversation, because I need to understand why. Why do you believe that's an acceptable number? 25 children go in, all 25 of them should be able to walk away learning how to read. And kids don't always catch up, because the pace in teaching is not the same for everyone.
Well, that and the fact that, like, elementary school should be a time where kids learn skills, like their basic skills. And I think a big part of it, and one of my clients is a screen time consultant, and she talks a lot about this, is we need skills before screens. And I think, like, my second grader is already trying to do everything on her iPad and like do all these things. And I said, you don't even know how to read well yet, and you are listening to this thing read to you, and that's not actually helping you understand the words. And so we've taken that back at home and said, like, we are going to be reading together every night to make sure that they do that. But the other piece of it too is, if we're taking out all of those life skill type classes out of schools. My class was being cut in every district around me, and I had administrators saying, well, they don't need to know that. Excuse me, at some point they're going to move out of their parents' house and going to need to know how to cook for themselves. Like, it's important to have a life skill. They're also learning fractions, and they're learning reading through reading a recipe, and all of those pieces that fit together that make sense, that are tangible for kids to understand. We can't just keep passing kids next without making sure they get the fundamentals before they move forward. Otherwise, they're going to be behind forever and then feel stupid and not ask questions when they're older, because people are going to assume you should know how to do that. Well, not if you weren't taught in the beginning.
Yeah. So you bring up a very good point about the recipes. I never really thought about cooking, but I can see that as potentially a problem. So because you can't read the box to find out what the temperature is, on the stove, or, how long you're supposed to cook it for, or even how to successfully add the ingredients. So that's something super huge. Job applications definitely is a problem in the long run, and then two, how many people walk away and don't even get jobs? We're not, Black and brown are not, they don't have this market corner. Let's be very clear. There are a lot of other people who have lived a long life and never been able to read, never once. And you actually find some of them that just mark an X on their signature because they don't know how to even spell their name. So when they incorporated No Child Left Behind, that was the biggest mistake ever made. When No Child Left Behind was incorporated, I believe, I understand what they were aiming for. But when I have a desired outcome I would like to accomplish, I have milestones in which I need to meet in order to hit that. And if you notice that you're going to fail 4 out of your 20 students, those 4 students need to go into a different journey that helps them catch up. Mm-hmm. That's what should have happened. It shouldn't have been just, oh, well, we can't leave them back here, so this was push them to the next grade. Kristen says she had an example where a young man, a child came in, he had 4 English words to his vocabulary. And I think she might have been teaching 4th grade at the time, but he was an ESL student. So when she got him caught up to the grade level before her, she didn't get credit for him being able to read on grade level because he still wasn't on grade level because she was in the 4th grade and she only got him up to a 3rd grade level. So those are the type of things, the metrics from which we are measuring is broken. It's not expansive enough for us to truly be able to go and access what is necessary in order for us to go and turn this stuff around. No Child Left Behind, although was hopefully intended to be a positive thing, has done nothing but create negative impacts to all of the families. And let's be very clear, the consequence is not the school. That is what I put in my post. The consequence, let's say it for the people in the back, not the school. Schools steadily get replacement children year over year over year. Parents, you have this mess for the rest of your life. The rest of it. Mom, I can't read this. Can you read this to me? What the world? I done spent all these tax dollars for you to come to me and ask me to read to you versus you being able to read yourself. The consequence is not the school.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that, Emily, you touched on it. And, I went to this seminar a couple of weeks ago and it was written, we had Dr. Tim Elmore come speak. And if you've never heard him, he is a phenomenal human being. And he's been studying generations for over 40 years, the differences in generations. And one thing he talked about this generation coming up is we need to understand them where, when I was growing up, I couldn't talk to my Google Home and ask a question. I didn't have a calculator on my cell phone. We had to go spend $100 on a complicated, thick calculator that was sold out of 3 stores just to show up to high school, right? That stupid TI-83 Plus. Never forget that $200 calculator we all owned. Okay, right? And we had to work out long division. We had to understand the process behind it. Because what if at some point we didn't have the calculator, right? We'd have to learn it. But now these guys have thousands and thousands of resources. Because look, if we're all in a room together and I ain't got my phone, tablet, you're going to go, I got it. Let me just look it up. Gail, you'll be sitting next to your Alexa and you're just going to ask your question because I don't have it, right? So there's all this information everywhere. But what he talked about is exactly, Emily, what you said. It is not rare anymore to have all of the information because it's everywhere. What is rare is interpreting that information into real life scenarios. Why do I need to know math? I'm never going to need to know long division, except when you're doing a recipe and you're either doubling it or halving it, you need to understand the process. Mm-hmm. Because what if you need to calculate 2/3 and you need to figure out half that, right? And those kind of things, that's where things like a home ec class can be so much more powerful than some of these other classes that they take, right? So it was a very interesting concept of being able to, when you talk about reading, when you talk about even getting into high school, and I think the moment we begin to show any kid from kindergarten to senior year, this is what I'm teaching you. Standardized testing says this is what you need to know, but here's how you can take this and utilize it in real life.
Yeah. And
you interpret that. We've learned the scientific names of classifications of plants and animals. Like I think you learned that like 4 different years. I know one guy that actually uses it because he works in an envelope company. Okay. But if envelopes are your thing, you're going to need to know this. If horticulture is your thing and agriculture is your thing and farming is your thing, and you remind them, this is why you need to know this if you're going to go this avenue, if you're going to think about that, then it shows the kids, okay, I'm not going to be a farmer. I'm not going to be shoveling things. I'm going to listen to learn through, but I might lean in on sewing and fashion and design and makeup and the chemical and the chemistry class and teach me the chemical compounds to make the makeup that I want to create. And you kind of learn this scenario, being able to teach them so that they understand it. I think you pique the interest of a kid and you're done. You're done. It's over. Game over. They will seek the information.
Yeah.
But it's the switching of the brain that can be so much more powerful in our generation who's teaching these kids. And so I love, Gail, what you talked about, having bring people in, having speakers, workshops, stuff like that. That kind of that kind of
Bill.
Right, for sure. Once in a while, you get someone who uses useless information.
I got a head full of it, by the way.
I have never once in my adult life had to use the quadratic equation, but I can recite it from memory. I don't even know what it's for.
Or the Pythagorean theorem, right? Like all these things. You never know.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
And my home ec class when I was in high school taught me how to set the table, and I have to still show, like my husband, they don't know, he doesn't know which side to put the fork on. I learned how to sew. I learned such fundamental things I've used my whole life.
Right. This is good. So here's the thing, couple of things in the comments. So the fact that Phil was in high school and 4 out of 5 classes didn't know who Mark Twain or Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. Now that's remarkable, because that was a book. First of all, I hated this book, but those were books that we had to read. What we understand now, what they're about, right? So that was one thing. The other thing Phil mentions is that how many parents really understand what school is teaching and not teaching. At the end of the day, you get to learn that. You get to actually, that's when your day, you got 2-3 hours a day for with your kid. Sit down, get rid of the devices, sit down and ask them key questions. Parents, you are teacher number 1. If you do not show an interest in your child, guess what is going to happen? They're not going to show an interest in you later. And then you're going to be like, why doesn't my child visit me? Why is it? Because you show no interest in them. Why should they show interest in you in their adulthood when you made it your business to not show interest in them? Yeah. I told my children at the very beginning, I need you in your life to be better than me. My daughter, I need you to be better than me. I need you to be a better woman than me as you grow up. And my son, I need you to be a better man than your father. And they were like, you're nuts. I said, stay alone. But I still need you to be better than us, because we got you here. Now you have to strive to be better than us, not because I feel as though you're better than me. I want you to have more knowledge and more opportunities than I had. And I fought to get you here. So now I need you to fight to get above me so that the next jump off point is a point that everybody can be happy with. But this LinkedIn user asked this question: how can the metrics be reintroduced into the school system so lagging students are identified sooner and taken an appropriate path to help them catch up? I will allow the teachers to go into this first before I dive in, because there is a way to solve this problem. But number 1, the people in power need to admit that it is something that needs to be changed. That is number 1. Acknowledgement of the problem and knowing that there's a solution on the opposite side is point number 1. So I'll allow the educators to go ahead and chime into that question and see if there's anything that you can do to help.
I think the other part of that is that we have such a punitive model, which is part of the problem. Is like, if you're the teacher that identifies that the kid is below level, they're going to look at your class and say, what are you doing wrong? Why aren't you doing this? When this teacher has 30 to 35 kids in her class or his class that are trying to make sure that everybody is at grade level. So it's not, how do we as a school community support these students? It's, what do you need to change about the way that you're doing things to make sure all these kids are supported? And it's like, excuse me, this is why teachers are leaving, because they're doing the best they can with what they have, the resources that they have to support these kids, and significantly more kids than one human being can support in one 45-minute to an hour long class. Right. So they're asking what they're asking is like, how do you give up more of your time to make sure that all of your kids are passing and getting what they need? When yes, we want to do that, but we also want to have a life outside, or we have families of our own that we want to support outside of the classroom. So it's more of a, how do we come together as a school community to make sure that these kids are supported, rather than pointing fingers and blaming this teacher or that teacher on why these kids didn't get to where they need to be.
Right. I agree with that. I do think that I would have loved to have been a teacher, I think. Not really. But okay, so the way I taught my kids were different. So I filled the gap. That's how I know it's possible. So all those parents who say, I don't have the time, and oh my gosh, let me tell you something. You will figure this mess out when you want your kids to do better than you, when you want your kids to have better than what you have. You will figure this out. So as a teacher, if I was in a classroom, my classroom would be loud, abrupt, but learning. And 25 of them will come in and 25 of them will leave with passing grades. And then when they go home, they were like, let me show you what I learned today. And we would be in it to win it together. And I think that now teachers, I get it. You have a curriculum you have to follow. There are things you must do because that's what your management tells you have to do. But that they said, this is what you have to teach, but they didn't say this is how you have to teach it. You get to choose. So if you notice that how you're teaching it straight from the book is failing, it's not good, then teach it a different way. I think that's the key part, is that if pay attention to your audience. If your audience is snoozing, talk about, oh my gosh, not this chick again, then figure out what to do differently, because that's what this is about. You got to keep the attention of these little crumb crushers, crumb snatchers. Them jokers, they just be doing stuff. Go ahead, Mikhail.
Tabitha, I feel very strong about what's been talked about, and this point I want to make. But I want to say, like, in fairness to teachers, I will say, like, all the teachers that I taught with, they did keep education pretty, I would say, overall quite interesting. I mean, they're not all just boringly, they have some passion about what they're doing overall. Good. But anyway, here's the thing I think that we're talking about that's missing for the children who are at the 37% failing in fourth grade. Their parents are not, maybe their parents are not educated, are not very educated themselves. Their parents are overburdened, and they don't understand what you said, Tabitha, what you said. You made me think about what I discovered was so key about my parenting. I have one boy. He's 32 years old now. He went through the education system with ADHD. And every year I went in to do my best to team up with the parents, the teachers, his teachers. And it didn't always work. But what my son said to me, when he was more grown, he said, Mom, you expected the most from me. You knew that I could do it. And because you knew it, there was no other choice for me. And even when, like, I remember in high school, he wasn't as committed to his homework. He said, Mom, you pushed me. You wouldn't allow me not to be. My point is, though, from our conversation, what it makes me think about a change in society we need is to teach the parents of those children how to advocate. And what you said, Tabitha, that you need to be their advocate, and they need to learn that. They don't realize it. They haven't been a big part of the education system. And I would love to see, like, with the Head Start programs that developed, like, there should be a component where teaching parents about their role and how they can make such a difference by being there to continually support their kids with their education and give them the message, you can do this. And Tabitha, I agree with you. I think when I was growing up, your parents always wanted us to be better than them.
Yeah.
And I think that message is important.
Very much so. So Phil says students reaching out for extra help has plummeted during and after COVID. Students are caring less and less, especially since they have phones and access to info and YouTube. That is clearly so. What I hear in that comment is this: you are not as interested as YouTube and my phone. I can get more interaction, engagement, and can be seen and heard better from strangers than I can be heard from the people who are paid to teach me. That is a mistake. So go back to the LinkedIn user who is asking for how do we reintroduce a new matrix. Here's the thing: as a parent, we hold the purse strings. My kids are out of school. I still have to pay school taxes. At the end of the day, we have to put people in position who are willing to see that there is a problem and willing to make the change. When you can start rallying and gathering a community around you that says, okay, here we are. My child can't read, your child can't do math, and your child can't write. Let's bond together. This is the bonus parent. This is a community. Who can I pull into my community that will help me with my child and improve their trajectory, and then send them back to school so that they can blow up the matrix and let you know home did this, school didn't do this. Now you guys are responsible for solving this problem, because it can't continue. It can't continue like that. That's not going to be okay. So I feel like those are the things that we can do to honestly make changes. But as parents, it is our responsibility. We had these children. The school didn't have these children. This is a lifelong situation. I'm saddled with children forever until I die. It is our responsibility to do what's best for them. And that means if your teacher is calling your child outside their name, guess what you are going to be at? You're going to be at the store talking about, you want me to snatch a knot in you, right?
Yeah.
So if they're not reading and they don't have math, you need to be going up there saying, excuse me, what do we need to do together to solve this problem? Because this is a co-parenting situation, not a one or a second. And that's how I look at it.
I think that's a big piece of what people are, parents are missing. I think there's so many, look, we can justify anything that we want.
Yes.
I can find someone online that believes me when I say that the grass is blue and the sky is green. I can find someone that'll agree with me on that, right? Regardless of the truth. But I think as real life action things that like we can do individually today as parents and with our friends, kids, and things like that is obviously, like you talked about, being community with the being in crazy communication with the teacher, because I'm sure, like Gail and Emma is previous educators, I'm sure you want that, right? You want to know that that parent cares just as much as you do for that kid's success. But I'd also, the reason why I am involved in the PTO, the Parent Teacher Association of my kid's school, is not so much the other piece of it. I want to know what the district's saying. I want to know what the superintendent is doing about this. I want to know what's going on. And so I would challenge the kids, if you're truly concerned about kids' education, show up to superintendent meetings, show up to district conversations, and that's one thing that one parent can do to make a small change in their own little world and kind of help make those things come into place. Because you'd be surprised on how what I've seen is there is a mad discommunication, a thick brick wall from what the superintendent's saying he's working on and the parent, because there's all these other channels that come through and it's like a game of telephone and he's saying a full long paragraph and all I'm getting is the period at the end of the sentence. It just doesn't, the communication doesn't get there. I have no idea some of these things unless we take the time as parents. And that doesn't mean, parents are busy. People have 2, 3, 4 jobs in a household. That doesn't mean you have to do everything your kid does, attend every practice, attend every school play, that doesn't mean that. But you just need to show up where it's important to them in their world, right? The second grader wants you to be at the Christmas party at school, but you do that. Those things that are important to your kid is so that they feel seen. But then you also show up to the higher end things, the district meetings, the superintendent coffees, to really hear how that's working in your school district. I think those are things that we need to do in our own world and bring a friend with you, right? And go and attend those kind of things and see what kind of change you can do here in your own household right? Because changing the world when it comes to the school districts is going to be a process, but it's just going to be one small thing at a time. You know what I mean?
And advocate for not only your own children, but the other children in the class and in the school as well. That's one of the things that Tabitha's program does, is to make sure that all kids are seen and cared for rather than just the select few. And seeing that we're raising our next generation of community members. So let's make sure that everyone's taken care of.
That is true, 100%. Ladies, it has been a pleasure to hang out with each and every one of you. I think that you have definitely brought it to the you raised the bar, my friends. You did what we needed to do, which was come here, talk about the problem that we see in front of us. You provided many solutions for each person, whether administrator, parents, or the community members, how they're going to be able to support those children as they continue to grow. If anybody is looking for any additional support or help, please let us know, because we do have people in our camps who are willing to help you. If you're a parent who doesn't have a lot of, who don't have a lot, and you're just struggling, in general, just please make it a point that know that you're not alone, and we're out here to help you. So thank you, ladies, for sharing your time with me. Thank you, everybody who showed up today and commented and everything. We did post some of the comments, but we'll see you again next time. Remember, words are power. Remember to use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest, like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message.